Card weekend kicking off today in the NFL, highlighted by the Steelers and the Ravens renewing pleasantries. These teams met in Week 16 with Baltimore winning by 17. Derrick Henry running for a clean 162 yards. Lamar Jackson threw for 3 scores, breaking the Ravens' single-season passing touchdown record. Now the Steelers limping into the playoffs after losing 4 straight after starting the season 10-3. They're just the third team to enter a regular season with a losing streak, to rather end a regular season losing streak of at least 4 games. Ravens will be without their leading receiver, Zay Flowers, who's dealing with that knee injury. He had 19 receptions of at least 20 yards this season. That was tied for 5th most in the NFL. It is great to get a few minutes with this man, Louis Riddick, this morning on SportsCenter. And how about it, Louis? This Ravens offense posing some unique challenges, to be sure. If you're the Steelers, how do you game plan to try to slow down or even stop Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry?
Well, Randy, starting with Derrick Henry, you have to contact Big King Henry at or behind the line of scrimmage and not let him get his momentum going. That is key, number one. Number 2, you got to get him turned sideways, because if he is going downhill and he can get to the second level +3, +4 yards, on a dead sprint, then you've got problems. As you see here in some of the highlights, when you get him going laterally, it's totally different. And then lastly, you got to tackle him low. You got to make sure that you get around his knees, around his feet legally. No cheap shots. He does not like it. For Lamar Jackson, it's about setting hard edges for Lamar Jackson, both in the run and pass game. Don't let him get outside the tackle box, because once he does and he starts to create, then you're in trouble. Number 2, you make him speed up and play on your terms. Do not allow him to feel comfortable in the pocket. Mike Tomlin knows how to do this better than any coach in the NFL, to make Lamar Jackson play in a very uncomfortable environment. That's why you will see them sending 5 and 6 rushers at him from various different angles on the regular, but with discipline, keeping the guardrails on this offense from outside in.
You talked about 162 yards for Derrick Henry in the rematch there against the Steelers. He averaged better than 6 yards per carry against Pittsburgh this season. Back with Louis, just a moment.
Yeah, because that's the nightcap to start the day off or to end the night. But what's Wild Card weekend without the Houston Texans hosting an afternoon home game? This time it's against the Chargers. In his first season, Jim Harbaugh has the Bolts back in the playoffs, seeking to be the second head coach in the league's history to win a playoff game in his first season with 2 different teams, joining Pete Carroll. The biggest turnaround in LA, it was their defense, which allowed the fewest points per game in the league. The Chargers were the only team to allow 20 or fewer points in every single road game this season. Again, on the road in Houston today. Despite winning the AFC South for the 2nd straight season, the Texans, currently a 3-point underdog according to ESPN Bet Houston, 1-5 straight up as an underdog this season. And as promised, Louis back here. And the Chargers, solid defense, don't turn the football over, and they have a coach, Louis, who's been here before. Is that not the perfect recipe that you want for the playoffs?
Yeah, absolutely it is, Gary, because I tell you what, starting with their defense, they force you to be patient, like to play a lot of what we call the 2-high shell, right? Whether it's cover 4 or cover 2, and give you some light boxes to run against. And they really test your ability to remain patient and continue to be perfect as you work your way down the field. Then as you get into the high red zone and into the red zone, that's where they start to really close on you like a boa constrictor. And they're one of the best in the NFL in terms of red zone defense and creating turnovers. And there you see Derwin James, who is just an absolute monster. And then on offensively, they take care of the football and then been able to strike down the field with more and more big plays in the passing game, with Justin Herbert looking spectacular. And Coach Harbaugh, look, he loves Justin Herbert like no head coach has talked about a quarterback in a long time. That is the recipe that you want. Good, tough, hard-nosed football. Keep people out of the end zone and don't turn it over. Sounds good to me.
And that's why the Chargers, they're 3-point favorites, though they've not won a playoff game since 2018. Louis, much appreciated. We're going to tap in with him later on in the.
Let's take a look at the NFL Wild Card weekend slate, Gary Bear, starting with the Chargers, of course, visiting the Texans. Where, Gary? Houston, where you used to live and work. That's at 4:30 Eastern. Jim Harbaugh's squad is a 3-point favorite at ESPN Bet. Gary, no NFL team was better against the number when favored than LA this season. Gary, going 11-2 in those situations this year.
Randy, that was when I was in my 20s. I'm nearly 40 now. Later tonight, Ravens host the Steelers at 8 Eastern. Pittsburgh 3-1 Randman against Baltimore in the playoffs. But tonight, they will look to slow down a Ravens rushing attack that's averaged just south of 6 yards, Randy, per rush this season. That is the most by any team in NFL history.
Jumps off the screen, Gary. Also, Broncos and Bills will get the day started at 1 p.m. Eastern. Denver making its first playoff appearance since the 2015 season. Are you rooting for them this year? We're not sure.
Randy, I'm not.
Where Gary stands. Listen, they went on to win Super Bowl 50 that year. They'll visit a Bills team. They went 8-0, Gare Bear, at home in the regular season.
Randy, I stand right here to tell you about the Packers taking on the Eagles, 4:30 Eastern. Randy, remember, it's a rematch from Week 1 when the Eagles won 34-29 in Brazil. That's how you pronounce it, Randman. Green Bay, they've won 8 games with 30 or more points this season, tied for 4th most in the NFL, while the Eagles, Randman, 2nd in the NFL in scoring defense.
As long as we're going global, Gare Bear, how about we take command and we just buck up at 8 Eastern?
I like
Gary,
that, Randy.
This is going to mark just the 4th time that these two teams, the Buccaneers and Commanders, Gary, keep up, have met in the wild card round. After averaging 28-plus points per game in the regular season, Straysky, what? Since the NFL, what, Gary? Instituted the wild card, Gary. This is back in 1978.
Randy, I don't remember that. That was before my time. Thank you for the history lesson, Randman. Finally, the Vikings and Rams close out the wild card weekend Monday night in Arizona, 8 Eastern on ESPN and ABC. Randy, the Vikings forced 33 turnovers this season, tied with the Steelers for the most in the NFL. Scott can't believe it. They are seeking their first playoff win since, Randy, when? 2019.
Gary, I knew that one.
Randy, you're lying.
I got that as a tie.
16 up.
I got that as 16-16. We're all winners there. These two teams met in Week 8. Matthew Stafford had one of the best games of his season in the 30-20 win. Finished with an 87.7 total QBR and 4 passing touchdowns. His QBR, Gary, is the highest by any starting quarterback against the Vikings this season.
As promised, Louis Riddick here to make us all smarter. Louis, Vikings, they've won 14 games. The Rams, they've been here before. They've won it all 3 seasons ago, Super Bowl champs. Which team is better poised, given that information, to make a playoff run?
Despite last week, I'm still going to say that Minnesota is still better poised. And that's because, look, Sam Darnold, I believe, will recover this week. And I think you will see him play much better. You know, he has been a guy who all season long, as measured by like completion percentage over expected, which takes in the difficulty of throws, the kind of coverage it was going into, you know, what kind of rush he was getting. He was top 10 in the NFL. He needs to get back to that. He has fantastic weapons on the outside. Obviously, Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the NFL right now, arguably. And Jordan Addison is a great number 2. They have a good 1-2 punch as far as their running game is concerned. The defense takes away the football, led the NFL in interceptions. They have a lot of things going for them. But they need to do better in terms of making sure that they score when they get in the red zone, be more efficient when they get in the red zone, and make sure Matthew Stafford doesn't shred them again, as you guys put up some of those stats from the previous game, like he did, particularly in the red zone. He took them apart last game. So they need to make sure that they have that squared away, and I think that they will. This football team has been a team of destiny all year long. They played above and beyond what people thought that they would play, and I think they're set up now, with Kevin O'Connell being one of the best coaches in the NFL, to go ahead and go on a tear.
From a team of destiny to a team of just simple expectation given their roster. We're talking about the Eagles. They host the Packers. That game on Sunday. A.J. Brown not on the injured list with that knee. Looks like he's going to play. He's obviously their leading receiver, Lewis, so how will he impact the game plan?
Yeah, when he's on the field, obviously what he makes defenses do is defend every blade of grass. And that's because of his ability to, one, win on the short game as far as the catch and runs, the slants that he can then turn into a 70, 80-yard rip. Or he's the kind of guy who can take the top off of the defense and really get outside the numbers and just run go routes or big posts, you know, as an X or Z receiver. And you're sitting there going, okay, well, we can't sit here and load the box against Saquon. We have to protect against this guy. Most corners can't handle him one-on-one. So really what he winds up doing is he makes the defense have to defend every blade of grass. He makes defenses have to make that choice. Do we put our corners on an island, or do we go ahead and put 2 safeties back and try and keep a top on everything? What does that do for everyone else? It opens up everything for everyone else, especially when you're talking about the fact that they have a 2,000-yard running back who right now is trying to go ahead and make people consider whether or not he should be the MVP. And really for Jalen Hurts, who right now is returning from concussion protocol, if you want to run him more, it's a lot easier for him to run the football against lighter boxes because A.J. Brown is on the field. So that's why he makes the big bucks. That's why he's considered one of the alphas at the wide receiver position, because he affects everything else that you're trying to get done defensively and offensively.
The Eagles going into this game well rested and nearly as healthy as they've really been all season. Brown, 119 yards receiving week 1 in that win in Brazil. Louis Riddick, again on vision. The Chargers won more games, and it's LA who are favorites going into today's playoff opening game in Houston. The Texans, they've lost 2 of their final 3 regular season games. Those 2 losses by the Chiefs and the Ravens in a 5-day span. Meanwhile, the Bolts haven't won a playoff game since 2018, dealing with much more than just game planning this week. Let's huddle up.
It was a dystopian-like scene at Chargers practice Thursday as the sky was burnt orange from fires that have ravaged California, and players wore masks and ash flew through the skies during practice. The Chargers don't have an indoor practice facility, but Chargers coach Jim Harbaugh altered practice so players would spend a limited time outside, the offense would practice briefly, and then the defense would come out later. No players were impacted by the fires in Southern California, but wide receivers coach Sanjay Lal, who has a home in Calabasas, dealt with power outages. Still, the Chargers say they're focused on the Houston Texans and they're not worried about how the fires will impact their game plan. I spoke with outside linebacker Bud Dupree, who's been in the playoffs 8 times, and Dupree told me that the playoffs isn't about who's better, but it's about who wants it more. We'll see how that goes on Saturday for the Chargers.
The naysayers as they prepare for their playoff matchup against the Los Angeles Chargers. They enter it as a 3-point underdog, but quarterback C.J. Stroud enjoys being in this position. He said, "I kind of like being the underdog. I've been in my entire life, so I'm comfortable in this position." Some Texan players heard the comments that Rex Ryan made, saying that the Chargers are basically getting a bye when they play the Texans. When running back Joe Mixon was asked about it, he took the high road, but looked around, laughed, smiled before saying, "I'm just here to let my helmet and my shoulder pads do the talking." But one Texan player told me, "I can't wait to shut these people up." As the Texans get ready for their playoff matchup, they'll have a prime opportunity to prove the doubters wrong.
All right, so Stroud relishing the role of underdog today, even at home. Keep in mind, though, no team had a better record against the spread than the Chargers this season. Last year, however, both home underdogs in wild card games, they won straight up.
Gary talked about it earlier in the show. We got a Saturday night playoff nightcap, and it's sending either the Steelers or the Ravens through to the divisional round. Those 2 AFC North rivals are going to have handshakes, and then they're just going to knock helmets in Baltimore tonight. First team All-Pro quarterback Lamar Jackson putting both his playoff and Pittsburgh struggles on the line against Russell Wilson and the Steelers offense that hasn't scored 20 points in a month. We have both teams covered, starting with Brooke Pryor and the Steelers.
The Pittsburgh Steelers are ready to burn the boats. That's what offensive coordinator Arthur Smith said earlier this week about getting his offense going against the Ravens. He said he's willing to do whatever it takes, when appropriate, to get this offense off to a better start. This team has not scored a touchdown on an opening drive all season, one of just 3 teams to do that in the NFL this year, and they're averaging just 14 points over the 4-game losing streak. Perhaps that could mean seeing a little bit more Justin Fields, who is healthy after an abdominal injury against the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the defense this week has had a lot of energy in practice. They started out with a mosh pit on Tuesday, but I didn't see the same thing from the offense. So I asked wide receiver Calvin Austin how they were going to bring the energy, and he said, "We get our energy through execution."
Lamar Jackson will be without his number 1 target in wide receiver Zay Flowers, who was ruled out of the wild card game with a knee injury. So how will Baltimore replace that void in its passing game? Ravens coach John Harbaugh told me it will take a group effort. Harbaugh said they have a lot of weapons, and it will be up to Lamar to distribute the ball as he sees fit. Jackson is coming off the best statistical season of his career, but he is 2-4 in the postseason with 6 interceptions and 3 lost fumbles. When I asked Jackson what he's learned the most about his postseason disappointment, he summed it up this way: you have to play mistake-free. The game is won on the turnover battle.
You heard Jamison reference Lamar's playoff struggles, and over the course of his career, Jackson's numbers have steeply declined in the playoffs, at least compared to the regular season. He also has a 39 total QBR in his career against the Steelers, his worst against any team that he started multiple games against.
The weekend is upon us. That means Jeremy Fowler is in studio. We're talking about the Monday night game. Crazy pictures with the Rams practicing with the wildfires going on behind them, the flames, the smoke, obviously that game being relocated to Glendale, Arizona, Monday night. What are the details surrounding the relocation of the game?
Well, the Rams are safely in the Arizona area. They're in Phoenix. They went late last night. They got a plane from the Arizona Cardinals who helped them out with an assist. I'm talking to people there. It's been a mad scramble the last few days just to try to figure all this out. Team President Kevin DeMoff said that part of it was they're just trying to get some extra hotel rooms between the Vikings and the Rams. They had about 500 hotel rooms that they could use for people who had to evacuate their homes. So they felt like it was a public service thing to leave town as well. So talking to people with the team, coaches, they're saying, look, we're just trying to stay focused here. It was good to go to Arizona a few days early where we can get some practice time in, make sure everybody's families are safe and feeling good. Now they're all take their normal schedule. Instead of flying to LA, they'll fly to AZ.
Yeah, great for the Cardinals to sort of open up their facilities and give them to the Rams. Glendale, about 370 miles east of the affected Los Angeles area. So that is just one of 6 games this wild card weekend. A ton of injuries to keep an eye on. Let's start in today's game. What's the latest on Chargers running back J.K. Dobbins?
J.K. Dobbins, I'm hearing he's good to go. He's got an ankle issue listed as questionable, but their lead back ready to play against the Texans, barring something unforeseen pregame. He should be ready to rock and roll, averaging nearly 70 yards per game. So the Chargers will make him the bell cow for their playoff game under new coach Jim Harbaugh. They've been running that rock. And then also Quentin Johnston, he's questionable. I'm hearing he is good to go as well. Receiver had nearly 200 yards last week.
He had a massive game, 13 catches.
No doubt. And you got Amari Cooper. So he had a personal issue. He was away from the team, missed 2 practices. Now he's back. He's logged a few practices. He is listed as a full go, no setbacks here. So a player like a veteran like Cooper, 5-time Pro Bowler, they weren't really worried at all about him missing a little bit of the game plan. He is all caught up. So the Bills ready to go for their Sunday matchup. He will be in the lineup. They got A.J. Brown, so had a little bit of a knee issue. I checked with a source who said it was minor. It was mostly a rest thing. They had to just get through the week. So he was a do not practice participant on Thursday, but Friday got back in the mix. Also, Jalen Hurts off the concussion protocol. So all their top offensive weapons ready to go for the playoffs now after really a couple weeks of rest for the Eagles since they locked up that number 2 seed. And you got Marshawn Lattimore. So the newly acquired Commanders cornerback has missed most of the last 2 months with a hamstring, but it is the playoffs. He is ready to go, and this will be a fun reunion. He's back going up against the Bucs receiver Mike Evans. They have been scratching and clawing in the NFC South for years when Lattimore was a part of the Saints. Now he's got a new matchup. Of course, they face each other. They're looking forward to it. Probably not going to be a lot of handshakes. Probably going to be more helmets.
Yeah, you ain't lying. Lattimore, a 4-time Pro Bowler, and that midseason acquisition by way of Washington is exactly why you bring him in for moments like this. And now it's like, hey, Mike Evans, good luck. Jeremy Fowler this morning with the latest on SportsCenter.
Ball night.
Hôm nay mình sẽ hướng dẫn các bạn cách làm một chiếc túi len đơn giản nhé. Mình sẽ sử dụng len mình làm này, dùng màu hồng, màu trắng và màu xanh lá mình kết hợp lại để tạo ra một chiếc túi thật xinh nhé. Hôm nay mình sẽ làm cái túi xay nhỏ nhỏ xinh xinh này thôi, làm túi cho búp bê thôi nha mọi người. Nếu mà các bạn thích làm túi thì các bạn đeo ấy, thì các bạn sẽ tăng cái kích cỡ của nó lên cho mình là được nhé. Mọi người chuẩn bị cho mình kim móc và kéo nhé. Rồi, đủ dụng cụ rồi, giờ mình sẽ bắt tay mình làm này. Đầu tiên mình dùng phần màu xanh lá trước nhé. Mình dùng xanh lá trước. Mình sẽ gỡ len ra để sử dụng nha mọi người. Mình gỡ len ra.
Các bạn lên màu xanh của mình đây, màu xanh của mình đây nha.
Đấy, Quy, có xem ảo rồi.
Ái da, nhiều tiền nhỉ.
Đâu, em lấy mà.
Ẻo lắm tiền ấy. Mọi người bây giờ đến màu hồng nha.
Mày mua áo của mày.
À, con ngựa đấy á.
Bro, anh lấy xong, cũng hay luôn.
Mở ra xem. Nó gửi cho em xem mà.
Đấy.
Nó gửi cho em xem mà, nhưng mà em đã biết là ngoài.
Áo khoác không?
Ừ.
Rồi.
Mở đi.
Bấm đây.
Mở ra đi để xem.
Rồi. Giờ mới đúng tiền nó đi phân quyền rồi. Có lạnh nè. Lại áo bưng. Kè đó, mới đặt phòng.
Mở
Rồi,
ra đây
cũng
là màu hồng nhá. Mở ra đi.
Cũng xuống hẹn đây luôn.
Ừ thì mở ra đi.
Tôi mở vậy, nhìn anh nhìn.
Mở ra đi sao em lại gấp vào cho em xem. Các bạn bây giờ các bạn ơi, bây giờ sẽ là một tiếng nha.
Làm gì vậy?
Tiếp tô màu cho bạn.
Đúng rồi. Về thay quần áo đi để đi.
Mà cần đôi áo cạp đi.
Đến đi là chất lạnh.
Lạnh cái đầu. Đi cái độc đến đây. Lạnh. Cô với em đi mà áo cặp đi chứ. Đi qua cái quán tiến mà xa lắm.
Thế à?
Quen rồi. Okay. Đi vai.
Làm sao đấy? Anh làm sao đấy?
Đi vai.
Đi.
Đi sao?
Đi.
Đi sao?